Hey all, welcome back. All right, we are still covering our percussion instruments for our introduction to Brazilian drumming. Again, as we mentioned, the idea is to get the rhythms from these percussion instruments because they developed on here, and then it ends up being part of our drum set patterns. One of the important percussion instruments we'd like to cover is an instrument called the Agogo bell, or Agogo bells, since it's a double bell. It's a connected bell here. There's obviously a lower pitched bell and a higher pitched bell on top. You would use a normal drumstick to play with this. And there is a technique where you can pinch the back of the bells to allow them to collide when you're playing the notes with the stick, and they fall in between those notes. So I'll play them for you in a minute. There are various patterns that you play on Agogo bells. The primary pattern sounds something like this. 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, there are some rhythms that are incorporated into our drum set playing, again, stemming from percussion. Other instruments that are different from the Agogo bells that sometimes end up on the Agogo bells. So one is a pattern called the partido alto, and that is something we're going to see on our drum set playing a little later. The partido alto sounds like this. 1, 2, 1, 2. And in the previous lesson, if you've seen that, you remember I was talking about the tamborim. And there's that tamborim main pattern that I played in that previous lesson. That also could end up on the Agogo bells. And that would sound like this. 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, in various Brazilian styles, you're going to find some shaker type instrumentation. And the first lesson of our drum set sequence we're going to study is Bossa Nova. And in Bossa Nova, it's a slower tempo, and there's just sort of overall kind of flowing pulse to it. And there are a couple shakers that are often present in that music. I'm going to play some of them right now. The first one is called a Cabasa. And Cabasa was created in the 50s by Martin Cohn, who owned and ran LP, Latin Percussion. And the Cabasa is made up of basically a canister up top and a row of beads over a foil-like surface, and it has a handle here. And when you put your hand underneath those beads and you turn with your other hand, you get a beaded sound like that. And when you pulse it back and forth, you'll get that rhythm that you hear so commonly in Bossa Nova. And you'll get that sort of pulse going through a lot of different styles and a lot of different feels. In addition, you might find somebody picking up just a normal shaker. Shakers, anything that is filled with some beads or some dried beans per se. Sometimes it's plastic, sometimes it's metal. This one happens to be plastic. You hold it out in front of you, you push forward to get a stroke, and there are some back strokes as well. Good thing to practice is just some basic 16th notes to get this going, and it's just a back and forth motion. And that gives you that pulse there. But in Bossa Nova and Samba, you sort of get this upbeat or this 2 and 4 type of feel. So you want to push forward to get that a little bit more, like a... And that outlines the pulse a little bit better. In addition, a very common instrument you find in all world music, especially in Latin America, are the maracas. And these maracas happen to be just a round-shaped maraca. Sometimes you could have more of a teardrop shape, a little bit bigger bulb up top. Again, like the shakers, these are plastic, but they actually initially come from a dried out gourd or fruit with beans in them. And when you shake them, you get that rattle sound. And just like the shaker or the cabasa, you have this constant 16th note flow. Sort of a normal technique would be to put your fingers on top of these and just do the 16th notes that you heard that the shaker played. Something like 1, 2, 1, 2. And again, with a little bit more of a pulse or an upbeat pulse, would sound like this. 1, 2, 1, 2. You get a little bit of a bounce back, that sort of thing, all right? So that covers the majority of the Brazilian percussion we're gonna need for the styles coming up. Stay tuned, we're gonna get into a history of some Brazilian music, and then we're gonna head into our drum set styles.